Archimex login confirmed.
Welcome to the Lodge. You've accessed
the Lodgecast experience.
Warning, warning. Dangerous spoilers ahead. Enjoy.
Good morning to you.
Good morning, everybody. It is 9:57 a.m. in Burbank, California, and this is the Lodgecast. I'm your Lodge Master. With me, as always, is Brother Bishki.
Good morning.
And Brother Lucas.
Top of the morning to ya.
And today, Brother Zach finishes his strange rock block of episodes with today's feature.
Summer of Sam, Summer of Sluice.
And for the first time ever on the cast, we have just a gem of a magical man, Brother Ian.
Ian,
Yes. Welcome.
Hola.
Welcome to the Prius, Ian. We've been trying to get you on the podcast. We've been looking for those perfect movies for you. We knew it was going to be Suspiria in November, but before that, it's Blackkklansman. 3 Ks in the middle there.
Klansman.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. It's a Spike Lee joint.
Yep.
It's a Spike Lee joint.
40 Acres and a Mule production.
We got to take the temp in the Prius on Mr. Spike Lee and his oeuvre, which has spanned how many decades now? 4?
Yeah, long time. Very, very successful run starting in the early 80s.
Hey, Mr. Fax, what do you think about Spike Lee? What's Lucas's mind frame right now?
I think Spike is a national treasure and one of the most distinct American artists of the 20th and 21st century.
Wow.
I absolutely love and adore Do the Right Thing. It's a 4-bone masterpiece.
Agreed.
It knocked me out
Yes.
when I saw it for the first time in 10th grade. And I bought the original one sheet. I had it up on my wall.
Great soundtrack.
I bought, amazing soundtrack. I bought his Do the Right Thing published screenplay, which also had his diary notes on making it, which is just for anyone that wants to learn about the original old school studio process back in the day. I mean, it's just amazing. But
what has he done for you lately?
Lately, sadly, I did a little homework last night, a little research, and to my horror, I discovered that, speaking of Summer of Sam, the last Spike Lee joint I saw theatrically was Summer of Sam in 1999. So some of the people listening probably weren't even born then, but that was the last time I saw
they were born.
Spike Lee's name on screen in a theater. And the last film of his I saw in general, on home video, was the 2006's Inside Man. But since then, we're talking 12 years, I have not seen one thing.
So he's pretty much preserved in amber for you.
Yes.
Okay. Sluice, where are you at?
Similar to LT, it's been since 25th Hour since I saw Spike Lee join the theater. I was playing Yo Bum Rush, the show, on the way over here, just trying to summon...
Get back in there.
Summon the Do the Right Thing...
Get back in that groove.
Juju. I agree with LT. His early stuff is pretty unimpeachable, and he's definitely a notable American artist of the 20th century. I'm hoping that this film will re-announce him as also an artist of the 21st century, because so far, he's more notable for what he wears to Knick games in the last 15 years than the kind of movies he's making. But
right.
He's a
classy guy. He's a classy, stylish, fashionable
one of a kind
gentleman.
He's one of a kind.
Okay.
And he's nothing if not provocative. But this film seems, from the outside looking in, like it's in that sweet spot for Spike Lee where it's loud, it's absurd, it's insightful, it's of the moment. High hopes for this film, very high. And he's working with his number one actor collaborator's son, John David Washington?
Correct.
Okay, so This has a lot of potential.
Okay.
Very excited. Been excited about this movie for months.
And I believe John David was an ex-NFL player before actor, correct?
That might be correct.
This is all great, but Brother Ian, when I say Spike Lee, what happens in your brain and in your loin?
Do the right thing.
You're a fan?
I'm a fan. I need to get it more into his films.
Did you see Summer of Sam?
You know what? I haven't seen it. I know the story.
I doubt it's going to age well if you see it now.
Yeah, I think I should.
John Leguizamo butt fucks a girl in a car, and it's as sexy as it sounds.
I went to that on a first date.
Oof.
Probably one of the worst first date movie choices.
The Baba O'Reilly montage with the sex doll.
There's a lot of swinging. It's tangentially about a serial killer, but it's mostly about swinging.
It's sweaty and swarthy.
It is.
I just know that Spike Lee is a big New York Knicks fan. He's
So-
always at their games.
And you're excited about today's film?
Yeah, I am. I actually, when I saw the previews for it, I was like, dude, I gotta watch this.
And then you came to me and you're like, I gotta watch it with you.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. Bishki, you have a long and complicated relationship with Mr. Spike Lee. That's why I'm saving you for last.
Yeah, well, I meant to do a full retrospective this summer. I didn't get around to it, but I saw,
Summer's still going on, Bishki.
I know. Well, we'll
It's
see
going
what
to be going into October
we'll see
in
what
LA.
we'll see what the Blackkklansman does for my retrospective ideas. But I love Do the Right Thing. Obviously, I saw He Got Game in 1998, and then I was like, I don't want to see any other Spike Lee films. I'm done with them.
I remember thinking when I saw He Got Game, it should have been titled He Got a Whole Bunch of Titty in His Face.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't a fan of that film.
That's a morning quip right there.
And then I was living in Chicago while they were shooting Chirac, so I went theatrically and saw Chirac, and it was bizarre. It was not good, but it brought back Wesley Snipes in a major way. I'm hoping he's in this. Maybe he's not, but Chirac I do recommend as a lodge screening.
Seems like
sometime.
there's salad dragons aplenty in that one.
Yes, there is. It's a
I-
weird one.
the premise alone.
After seeing Chirac, I can see this one could be along those lines, but I am open-minded.
Okay. Yeah, I think the hype around Blackkklansman is huge. The reviews are overwhelmingly positive so far, at least. And I'm just wondering, I feel Spike Lee's movies are always entertaining, whether or not they are entertaining in the way he intends them to be. Sometimes it's his bombast that is the entertaining part, his overreach, and I don't know, maybe he found the sweet spot with this, but
I feel Spike's movies that we all love more than others are ones he's collaborated on the screenplay with, as opposed to ones like Chirac, where I think he's got sole writing credit.
He doesn't. He that was a co-write also.
Ah, okay. Well, I feel like he's better suited to work with other writers in general, because I find his writing is not as strong as his direction.
or it's just a matter of the zeitgeist of whatever year he's releasing it in, connecting with the material.
And to that point,
that too, yeah.
we're at the 1 year anniversary of Charlottesville.
Oh, right, yeah.
And this
to the weekend.
and this
Shit,
release,
really?
this
Oh, man.
it's today or tomorrow,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the release was timed to coincide with that.
Yeah.
That's one of the zeitgeist. Part 2 of the zeitgeist is executive producer Jordan Peele.
Yeah.
And so he's going to sprinkle a little of his man of the moment pixie dust
His Peele zest.
back onto Spike
Yep.
and see if he can reinvigorate the legend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're all optimistic. I'm a bit more cautiously optimistic,
That's the right way to be.
but because I've been burned in the past. been burned in the past. But
Seriously, Bamboozled is a interesting film.
I've been bamboozled.
Bamboozled, I actually enjoyed more than I thought, even
Same,
though it's
same.
kind of it's
long.
really
It's too long. It's too
messy,
long.
but it's provocative and entertaining, and he just kind of leans a little strongly on the documentary footage at the end. It's a little too much explaining what the movie was a little more subtly and more nuancedly
that's always been my biggest criticism
expressing.
with Mr. Lee is he
tends to go on.
Yeah, he beats you over the head with his theme.
And Chirac goes on.
And today's is 2 hours and 15 minutes.
I was going to say, we got a run time. We got a run time today. So
man.
let's see.
Okay, let's go.
Cautious optimism.
Let's go experience it for ourselves.
Yeah.
If nothing else, he's going to give us something to talk about.
Yeah.
Hair and
He takes
fucking
risks.
teeth.
He takes big risks.
So, Brother Ian, you ready?
Yep, let's do this.
Let's hit this morning clan rally.
All right.
Peace.
And we are back from our morning screening. How's everybody feel about a morning screening?
Very
guys?
good. Very nice.
That was
Packed theater.
well attended.
Yeah.
Diverse
The
theater.
$8 price brought people
Not
out.
bad.
Yeah, almost sold out.
We've been keeping it muted. That's a tough movie to keep muted, especially after that ending. But before we get into it, Brother Bishke, give us that
Snap.
Yes, from Rotten Tomatoes. From visionary filmmaker Spike Lee comes the incredible true story of an American hero. It's the early 1970s, and Ron Stallworth, John David Washington, is the first African-American detective to serve in the Colorado Springs Police Department. Determined to make a name for himself, Stallworth bravely sets out on a dangerous mission: infiltrate and expose the Ku Klux Klan. The young detective soon recruits a more seasoned colleague, Flip Zimmerman, Adam Driver, into the undercover investigation of a lifetime. Together they team up to take down the extremist hate group as the organization aims to sanitize its violent rhetoric to appeal to the mainstream.
Thank you for that, Brother Bishke.
Yep.
Where to begin with this?
Based on some for real shit.
Yeah, I think I don't know verbatim, but I think the opening credit was "Disjoint is based on some for real shit," something like
Exclamation
that.
point. Yeah.
And then they bring us right into it
With a little Alec Baldwin prologue.
With a little Alec
Wow,
Baldwin.
that is like hitting you in the face. Like
I'm gonna go ahead and say that's the salad dragon scene.
Yeah.
It's the very
Yeah.
first scene.
Delicious.
Definitely.
It is Alec Baldwin,
Jack Donaghy adjacent.
giving a segregationist screed in front of different slideshows and film footage of segregation in action, and he is
On point.
He is on point in a way that I haven't seen him on point in a long time.
Fired up, dialed in,
Yeah,
like Spike and him were just
That's
making
the Baldwin
magic.
Yeah, that's the Baldwin you love.
They were vibing on exactly the same plane, and I was very excited at that point. He nailed that.
It had me laughing. Like it completely disarms you, but also sets up the wacky, the crazy, surreal tone, because it does feel like parody. But I guarantee you, the Alec Baldwin stuff was verbatim real transcripts from what was really
and
said.
he was just chewing into it.
Oh,
and it
making a
was,
meal out of it, just gorging on every morsel and bite.
if he gets a Best Supporting Actor nomination, especially in this year where there's going to be 40 nominations for everything, I wouldn't be upset.
Yeah.
Nor would I really be upset if I think it's Aldous Hodge. Is that the name of the actor who played Stokely Carmichael?
Oh, is that true? Yeah.
I thought he was fantastic.
He was really fantastic, and he needed to be.
He was good.
But so basically, the plot is our hero is kind of similar to Sorry to Bother You. He has a quote unquote white speaking voice in this, and he joins the Colorado Springs Police Department and quickly runs into all of the sort of racially motivated hostility that you would expect. He starts in the file room and quickly realizes that that's not what his destiny is, and talks his way into being an undercover operative to first infiltrate the Black Power movement, which is where the Stokely Carmichael speech is. And that kind of takes up the first, 20 or so minutes of the movie. And what did everybody think of that? Because he goes to this speech, and it kind of, to me, it just kind of sets out the bedrock for the movie that everything functions on. His entire kind of racial reawakening and strengthening of his thoughts. But it's a long scene that is just
it stops the movies in its tracks for sure.
But why it's there.
But yeah, it's very important, and he did it beautifully. It was a very beautiful sequence, and
I agree.
A short film in and of itself.
I agree. I actually think there's moments later in the movie where he does similar things to lesser results. The Carmichael sequence I thought was beautifully filmed.
Yeah.
Edited, performed,
and visually
nice images.
Felt very 70s. Felt very of the time.
Totally great.
Aesthetically consistent.
I was so with the movie.
The facial dissolves were great.
Yeah.
And I thought, like you're saying, it not only is formative for him, but I think it's formative for the audience to understand the competing voices within the Ron Washington character, or Ron Stallworth, sorry,
right?
John David Washington's character,
who I thought he was great in.
He was fantastic.
Yeah.
Ian, how are you digging the vibe in the early goings? Did you like the Baldwin?
I did like the Baldwin part. I like when he just yelled all those.
He's clearing his throat.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah,
but it was just really strong, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The movie had a lot of strong presence too.
So the majority of the movie is drivers and actual Stallworth kind of infiltrating, getting buddy with different levels of this what do they call it, the organization? They don't want to say the Klan, which that was interesting too. It's like back then it was a bad word, and now you're feeling like people are more emboldened to not hide, which there's a lot of subtle and not so subtle things in this movie.
Spike underlines a lot of points of today, and what's crazy is if a person was in a coma for the last 10 years and just woke up and saw this movie, it'd be seamless, they wouldn't even make the connection,
right?
Because it does work in both time periods, sadly,
Right, which there's something to be said about that, but Bishke, I'm extra curious to see what you think about this, because you don't like your politics to be heavy-handed in movies generally. From what I've gathered.
Right, like Louis B. Mayer said, if you want to send a message, use Western Union.
And this movie abolishes Western Union, and the message is
the parallax view, where they strap you to a chair and blast you with everything.
That's exactly where we're at with this movie.
It's true. We'll get more towards the ending eventually, but
sure.
But it does.
But throughout,
it does make its points.
Make America Great Again is a line of dialogue.
But let's also say, Make America Great Again and America First are not Trump's invention.
No.
Those were
Trump
around
cribbed
back
them.
then. That's why I'm sorry to. Back to Bishke, but just
yes.
He uses those, I think, in my opinion, well. Even, you can't, in order to make the connection, it's like everything is so on the nose, but we live in a time that is fucking on the nose.
True.
And like you can't have a character say "Make America Great Again" like they would have without connecting it to Donald Trump and his movement. There's no way to do that subtly. But
there's a way to do it more subtly,
or maybe more comically, or I don't know. But I would say it works like for quite a while until maybe it doesn't. But
I agree with that.
I think my the main point that I'm going to make is I thought it was a great scene where Stallworth is talking, I think, to his captain or his superior, and they're talking about David Duke, and they're talking about the absurdity of David Duke running for public office, or for having somebody that would even sympathize with him in the presidency. And that's played for laughs, because we know...
That works. That's when it's working. You're like...
But... they take away the bite from it with an ADR.
Oh yeah, they
Where
added that in
it's-
post. They totally fixed
where
that in
at the
post.
end-
where
where-
it cuts to a B-roll or like a,
No,
a close
it
of
cuts to
Ron.
his face, and he says, "You're really naive if you think that couldn't happen. Why
for a
won't
black
you
man.
wake
He goes,
up?
"You're naive for a black man."
Why won't you wake up?" And it's like, fuck, we don't need that.
Right.
Like that's the bludgeon that ruined that scene for me, where it's like
Right.
you don't trust us to read between these lines, get what you're saying in the tone that you're saying it. You have to take the air out of that little satirical moment. And
Totally agree. It's like in
bludgeon
Summer,
us.
Summer of Sam. You know, all the neighborhood Italian guys hung out in a cul-de-sac in a dead end, and you get that these guys are going nowhere. Their lives are stuck in a rut. They're all cosmically in a dead end. What does Spike do? He like literally films a sign that says "dead end," and he like
that's
pulls
exactly
back
it.
from it while they're all like standing around it. And it's like,
Which-
dude, we get it.
It's like you can do that. You can do that.
Yeah.
That's fine. But give us a little bit of credit and don't it kind of just takes you out of the story that's being told, to me at least.
I think that's totally valid, and I think there's other times where that's even more so true. I think one of the things the movie does well is it tries to show the repackaging of very outlandish and overt racism repackaged into palatable racism that we are still dealing with in like modern America today, where people can step back and go, well, I'm not a racist.
Right.
I just say, why can't we be proud to be white?
Right.
That's not racist. And then you start to unpeel the onion layers, and it's like something that is so obvious. The racism is so obvious under the surface, but when they like use these kind of smoke screens to hide behind, and so I think someone saying, you know, wake up, it still is something that you could say to a character
Right.
that's trying to say, you know, sorry, just one quick thing. It was like when I tried to explain to someone after the election all the rise of the hate crimes and then the outward neo-Nazis and white power people, and a friend of mine said, "Oh, come on, you're blowing it way out of proportion. It's not that bad. It's never going to be like that." And it's just like you can be blind to it because it seems so outrageous, and you know, but that doesn't mean it's not happening, and that doesn't mean that these people aren't feeling emboldened or safer these days than they were. You know, even 5-10 years ago.
Right, and that's all in there. I'm just saying it was obviously a late addition to put that little button on that scene.
Might have been. I don't know.
And
no, for sure it was.
For sure
it wasn't
was.
even mixed right. It was like
wasn't even
I didn't
mixed
pick
right.
up on that. I
sloppy.
didn't pick up on
Yeah,
that.
it was
So
rough.
to see that makes me question, like it shakes the foundation of my trust in the storyteller at that point. So, which leads me to my next point, which is this movie feels shapeless.
For sure.
I agree with that.
It's herky jerky, and again, it goes back to pacing.
Which is fine if you're aping kind of the 70s movies that this film obviously reveres.
Oh, but with that scene when they're walking next to the creek and
That
they're
was
talking
rough.
about, it's like, come on, guys, like don't start all the way back. Can't we be like halfway up the creek?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I felt like it needed to build to a crescendo.
It should have been more suspenseful,
especially
intense.
with the very tag ending it gets to, and it sort of gets bogged down in the plotting. I would say it kind of goes off the rails when he decides to go into the Klan rally as the cop defending David Duke.
Yes.
Like having him there in his like kind of blaxploitation, like I don't know, undercover cop outfit and then it just the plotting after that point.
But my point is though, when they're both in the same room together, the two Rons finally, it should have been so fucking tense.
Yeah.
And there's nothing. There's no tension.
The
Like,
tension happened
even
when
when
they
the guy
discovered who he
recognizes
was.
one of them and goes, that guy's a Jew cop. It's like there's still no tension, and that's when you know you're kind of
Then
like.
then there was tension for me, but I agree with you up until that point.
Ian, what did you start to feel the length at all? it's a 2 hour and 15-minute movie.
Plus 30 minutes of trailer.
Plus a
Yeah,
full
the trailer was the part that was just like impressive because it was just trailer, and we were just like, whoa.
And it is A Star Is Born is the new Mission Impossible. We will see it at every movie, and it doesn't come out for another month and a half.
Oh man.
Maybe it's time to let the old.
So going to
Wait,
the
is
question,
Anyway.
The question was,
You gotta trust me,
how,
Bishki.
did you start to
That's
feel
all you gotta do.
the length, or were you consistently engrossed in this movie?
what I liked about the film, what I really concentrate more is on how like the camera works.
Yeah.
I'm more of the image and ideas.
He's got some great frames in this.
And
Some
my
beautiful shots.
favorite part was when what's his name? Cartwright. I'm sorry,
Stokely Carmichael?
Yeah, sorry, Carmichael. When he does that speech, I like how Lee does these zooming shots with like the people in that group, the faces, the dissolves, and all that, and that's just made me like, wow, this is awesome. And that's the one part I was really like hyped about.
I wished that there was more of that throughout. Also, the music, I liked the theme.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the theme of it, but it was so orchestral and kind of drowsy.
Yeah.
And the guitar work kind of reminded me of Lethal Weapon 3 a little bit. So, like, every time like a scene would wrap up, and then we're on a vista somewhere, and it's just like,
And there's like some drone shots in the movie too. That are like super high up, which Spike's never done.
I feel like a little. Like, maybe bring in the orchestral when shit gets really serious toward the end, but, like, pep it up a little bit.
He's
like,
been using Terrence Blanchard's whole career, right?
One thing I thought,
give me some
especially
So
was not working in the middle of the film, and was the scene that we already brought up on the long walk, is I didn't really feel any juice in that relationship between John David Washington and the actress.
I thought she was pretty stiff.
They should have got
They didn't really have any chemistry.
Yeah, it was rough.
I wasn't really invested in that relationship.
It was almost.
And they needed it.
It was prescribed.
It felt like a half-hearted subplot. It was like a box they had to check.
Whereas his relationship with Adam Driver was much more compelling.
Correct. Correct.
But his relationship with her, again, I kept thinking the same phrase throughout. I'm like, tighten the screws.
Right. Tighten
the screws, because
she's the stakes. Like, it raises the stakes. It's definitely, it's important.
But when he reveals who he really is
it
to
falls
her,
flat.
it was really flat.
So fucking flat. It's like, again, it's like there's no tension.
That's a layup.
I don't feel anything.
And there was some ADR work in that scene.
I'm not really a cop, but now I'm going to reveal that I actually am a cop to a love interest. Mm-hmm. That's a layup that has been tried and true throughout
since
all time.
Since like 1940.
And this movie biffs it. Like, there's nothing.
It's
just
it wasn't dramatized very well, or staged, or blocked very well.
And the fact that
the
whole plot, like the whole story, is leading to this attempt to blow her up with C4 by the Klan members. Like, that should be a fever pitch, but it's kind of just like, middle of the day, he sits her down and he's like, I'm a cop. And she's like, oh,
bye.
Man.
Well, and I'll give you another example where the editing, I think, and I don't know why Peele or one of the producers didn't. Maybe they did voice this, and Spike's just too strong to take their recommendation, or who knows what the dynamics are. But there was a scene where one of the Klansmen, who's kind of suspicious of Driver the whole time, is in bed with his wife.
Yes.
And he does, and it's on his own.
So random.
No, just hold on a second.
No place in the film, because we've been with Ron Stallworth.
I know, but let me make my point. Let me make my point. That's you're
hey, no hate.
So my point is, you could have. I'm trying to remember the scene right before it, but you could have cut, as I remembered, from the scene before it to the scene after it without skipping a beat, and the movie would have had a little momentum and pep and stuff. The scene on its own is really entertaining. It's like the guy doing
pillow talk.
It's pillow talk.
It's racist pillow talk.
It's racist
so
pillow
crazy.
talk, where he's like getting, doing a performance for his wife and talking
She's
about
loving it.
Too
like
gross.
activating white power and violence and blah blah blah. But there's no need for it because we already know the dynamic between the husband and the wife. We already know that he's promising. She's like, "There's a time you're going to need me," and there's going to be a plotting scene between the two of them later. Anyway, there's no need for it, and it really slows the movie down. And there's about, I'd say, 3 or 4 of those scenes.
I think it could have been delicious to get to know some of these guys, but they're so one note.
Right.
That it doesn't matter. Like there seem to be endless scenes with Adam Driver ingratiating himself into their world, but they all kind of blend together. Like there's the dumb fat guy, there's the wiry skeptical guy, and then there's the sort of sympathetic to him ringleader. But it's the same note over and over and over.
Yeah, it doesn't progress very much dramatically.
You can only hear that dumb fat guy laugh so many times before you're just like...
Right.
How do we feel about the intercutting between... Okay,
with Harry Belafonte?
That was Harry Belafonte, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And between that and the Ku Klux Klan, like, induction, like, how do we feel about that going back and forth? Because to me, I mean, it's like... the tone of the film, and then you bring in Harry Belafonte, and it turns into like a documentary almost. It was
stunt casting for sure.
Yeah,
his last on-screen performance, most likely.
Lucas.
I started feeling really bothered by the choice, and then completely switched my opinion of it by the end.
Okay.
And
you didn't have pause when they were cutting between black power and white power.
I thought.
Like what is he saying? What is he saying there?
I understand because if I may, I think he's trying. I don't know if he's trying to say this, but what I get from it is it's very easy to look at those things as two sides of a coin, and then you'd be making the same mistake that Donald Trump does. And I think that there are. So if he's trying to show you that you could easily mistake that, and then. You see that there are clear differences. One is oppression and one is reaction to oppression, and they're not. Do you know what I mean? They're not like the same. They aren't the same sides of the coin.
Right.
But the way but if I sorry, one last thing. But I do think though the reason why I liked Belafonte bumped obviously because you're like, oh, he's a guy who's telling a real story.
He's a real dude.
But he's much older now, so that doesn't. And I'm noticing it because he would have been younger, and so I'm aware a real person has entered the space of the movie. But by the end of that sequence, I felt like it worked because all of a sudden the robes had been and the hoods had been taken off in a way, and the people you're laughing at, you're seeing this is actually, you're reminded this is real. People did suffer, people did die, and he's kind of starting to show you there's fiction and there's reality, and he definitely hits that home later at the end of the film.
Lucas, counterpoint?
No, I was just going to say I interpreted that scene as Spike Lee encouraging the audience, people to get, proactive and organized, because you got to fight fire with fire. This turning the other cheek shit is not going to work. And when these guys are building an army, essentially, it's like you've got to build your own army, because if you don't, they're going to fucking burn crosses on your fucking lawn and come after you. So you got to put your foot down. I looked at it as you got to wake up.
Martin Luther King, Malcolm X tension has been there since the beginning with Spike Lee since Do the Right Thing, and it does provide a good narrative tension, because I think you got the cop in this movie who is torn between kind of the black power, but then also I still want to be a cop and I still want to hold things together and not get out of control.
Right. But I think I kind of side with Lucas's interpretation that he is Spike's letting his rage spill over in that a little bit, which is totally justified. I'm just kind of like with Dinesh, you have to wonder what the viewer is going to be thinking of all this, and I don't know what average Joe viewer is going to take away from.
I don't know how this is going to play in the South, in Charlottesville.
And we also have to point out, this is in the Burbank 16 multiplex. This movie that we just watched is playing alongside The Spy Who Dumped Me.
Hotel Transylvania.
Like that's pretty amazing
And
in
it's
and of
usually
itself.
every racially charged slurp, like from
Yes.
the Ku Klux Klan, like it gets under your skin, like the
Yeah.
stuff that they are saying. Is,
Well, I think too, like, because there is a barrage of language of just every slur in the book is in this movie.
Yeah.
And I think it's used correctly, I mean, as shock value initially, but I don't know, there's two ways of looking at it. Either I kind of felt like that they were coasting on that in the middle quite a bit, where it's like, isn't this shocking that all these people are saying, all these words? And it once you accept that as their world, it ceases to become shocking. And then you need more story nutrients to hold up the weight of that. But the other way of looking at it too is like, it gets under your skin, because there is a cumulative effect of hearing all that.
Yeah, it's disquieting. Yeah,
and it builds toward the end.
Yeah.
What else do we need to cover
before we get to the end?
Before we get to the inevitable.
I just felt sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
What you were just saying about the parts that were saying all the provocative stuff, I kind of felt the presence of the people we're around with. I wonder what they were thinking. And I noticed there was a couple who was sitting next to me were African American, and you know what, the guy seemed like he laughed and
he was in it.
I looked because
me and him were on the same page,
Yeah.
and I wasn't holding back. I was like laughing at what I wanted to laugh at. I didn't feel any tension.
I think there's
us.
an assumption that anybody that's going to this, especially first thing in the morning, is probably
down.
Is probably in jive parlance down.
Yeah, no, we were both digging it, and he and his girl would like very occasionally talk to each other about what they were seeing. Like they had to kind of address certain things.
And I noticed there was a diversity of a crowd.
Yeah, it was all shapes and
especially
sizes.
for Burbank.
No, they were all different demos. It was good. It was a good turnout.
I feel like the tone is purposefully, like, nobody involved in the movie would even argue that the tone is crazy. But
it plays like comedy more than drama, I feel. Because I felt like I was laughing more than I was like being horrified or crying.
First half especially.
Because the Alec Baldwin thing, like, it keeps you kind of high and elated, and then he goes into the interview and you're like laughing some more, and then he gets hired and he's like doing the slow walk to piss off the racist cop, and that's funny, and it's like, man, this almost feels like a comedy, like more than me
it's hilarious.
Getting emotional. Yeah.
I can't help but feel like if you tighten the screws overall, the comedy and the tension would complement each other. It would make the comedy darker and the tension higher, because shit would be popping more. Like shit, like you'd be in it more.
You could cut 20 minutes off the movie easily, and lose nothing of what makes the movie special.
The other thing I was thinking was Topher Grace, who appears as David Duke, is famous infamous for doing his own cuts of Star Wars movies and The Hobbit. He just recently, I think, trimmed down all the Hobbit movies into one movie.
I would like to see both of those.
But I couldn't help but think, like, because that's the way obviously his mind works, when he watches this movie, what's he going to be doing? It's the optics are bad for a white man who plays David Duke in the movie to do his own cut of Blackkklansman, but and as an editor myself, like, I can't help but see where it's just stretching out where it should be fucking on fire.
But not only that, I feel Spike maybe dropped the ball in certain setups or shots, because, for instance, like, if we could just jump to the climax where the bomb is exploded.
Yes.
Maybe it was for budgetary reasons. He couldn't actually show us the guys dying, so that was unclear to me at first. And then he never got an actual, like, reaction shot of the wife realizing her husband's dead. Instead, it was very confusing, and then again it was like not covered properly or something, so I felt like
very funny where she couldn't fit the bomb into the mailbox.
The whole movie for me is like spikes of, well, pun intended, I guess now, but spikes of brilliance, and then just like bewilderment as far as yeah, like why is it put together like this?
I will say that the every time it lost me, it was able to regain my gripped attention.
And seeing it with an audience was helpful too, because when it does come back, you know, people were still awake. You know, they when he reaches in for the hug of David Duke right before they take the Polaroid.
Very funny.
People woke back up there. It was great.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the ending.
Let's get to the ending, guys.
Very, very ending.
So, yeah, like the movie as we've been watching it with the characters that we've been getting to know, kind of ends on a cliffhanger of. It's almost comically like, the dirty cop gets arrested. Everybody's congratulating our hero.
Good beats evil.
But then, you know, he's off the case.
We did too good a job.
He's off the case, but his phone's still ringing. You know, they're still out there. And then he's with his lady, and they get a knock on the door. They both pull guns, which is a great moment. And
into the classic Spike Lee shot.
His signature move, which is great. I love.
And then we go out the window, and there's a burning cross. And then that transitions into Charlottesville 1 year ago this weekend.
Like literally right now, yeah.
And the the infamous tiki torches that we're going to be reading about in the history books forever.
Fuck.
If there are books anymore. And it just turns into a slap in the face of like, oh, you think this is the 70s? This is fucking now, and now is worse.
And the people you've been laughing at, they exist, and they cause this kind of violence.
And they're sanctioned by a higher power, and the higher power being Trump.
Right, and on both sides.
On both sides, many sides.
So be honest. When it went to Charlottesville, what are we thinking? Like, does this feel right, or does it feel right for right now, or is like?
I feel like Charlottesville is kind of the undercurrent of the whole film. It's obviously, whenever you show that footage, it's going to disturb you.
Yeah, it definitely landed hard.
It fucking gut punched me, man. I knew that he was going to do this because I just saw it on social that people say he
Same. That was the headline I saw.
I've known that he was going to cut to Charlottesville.
I didn't know.
I knew about
apparently,
it.
Apparently, the headline I saw in the Hollywood Reporter said that in Charlottesville, like specifically, the theater has to put a trigger warning at the beginning of the movie for people going to see it or something, because it's like really
people were crying in the theater.
Yeah,
I was crying.
There was a lot of.
I'm be honest. It hit me like it knocked the wind out of me, man. It crept up on me. I was kind of feeling like you, Matt. I was not sure where I stood with the movie, and when it transitioned for me very seamlessly from fiction into reality. My initial thought was, I knew this was coming, okay. It very, very swiftly hit me like a ton of bricks, and I was crying in the theater, man. It made me feel terrible. It was very real.
And then it dissolves to an upside-down American flag that turns black and white, and then we're out. It's undeniably, like, because it's true, everything you've been watching naturally leads up to what is happening now, and specifically, and such a vivid visuals of that situation.
I'm sorry to backtrack for a second, but one thing I did want to mention too was the specific calling out of D.W. Griffith's The Birth of a Nation. And I think we all forget, because we're so desensitized to social media and visual images and virtual reality and shit. But 100 years ago, it was history written in lightning, as Woodrow Wilson, the president at the time, said.
Because Dinesh has reminded us.
Because nobody had seen it, and like that's what's so crazy is like Spike is basically saying, hey, like the Klan was pretty much dead at that point, but after they saw themselves on screen,
they got amped.
They got super amped, and it's like, fuck me, you're kidding. Like, it's that dumb. It's like that fucking dumb. Like, they saw a movie and they bought like the costume for it. Like, fuck.
And they're eating like popcorn.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
I'm sure they
think-
still watch.
I think it's incredible that 2 episodes of the Lodgecast in a row have featured
Pivotal.
Birth of a Nation and Woodrow Wilson's reaction to such.
To opposite ends, but
To completely opposite ends and completely opposite means, but
I think
nonetheless.
I think
But no,
Spike
but-
Lee has tried this ending before. Like I said before, we saw the movie in Bamboozled, and my reaction in seeing Bamboozled was it did not work. For me, this was incredibly powerful.
I agree. I think the Charlottesville coda, the epilogue, was very much needed and of this time and appropriate. And like, there was no other way you could have ended it, with the exception of, like Zach said, if you wanted to show more lynchings that the KKK did. But Spike Lee did that at the end of Bamboozled. Like, we've seen like how ugly the real history is, and I think the Harry Belafonte scene was like more than enough to just drive that home. Like, fuck.
I thought, I mean, the footage can't not be powerful, especially in context of what we just watched. But I don't know. Like, I feel of two minds. I feel like it's a crutch for a movie that had us and kind of sputtered its way through a bit. It's a surefire way to bring home all of your points, and yes, to make us cry and fucking self-reflect and everything. But also, it's like, fuck it. It's Spike Lee. Like, what else is he gonna do?
Yeah.
Like, he wants it in our face. He wants it to be of right now. Like, he wants it to be the timeliest shit because the battle is here, you know? Like, so, I don't know. I'm of two minds of it. But it was definitely, I mean, it was definitely powerful. Ian, what did you think of the ending? Like, what were you feeling when we got really real?
Oh man, yeah, I feel the same thing for like how Zach's feeling, because I had a tear coming out because I just feel like it's just going too much, man. I know times are changing, and I always think about these things because I would think about my daughter too, because I don't know how her time is gonna be like when she gets older, how things are gonna be. I just kind of like saw that footage, and I really didn't expect that to happen because I didn't know that Lee was going to do that, and it just made me very, to be honest, it just made me very upset and just freaking pissed off.
Well, that's what he wants.
I just it just pissed me off. And then I noticed after that, when it finished, everyone was quiet.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I know the quietness.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow.
I
feel that hit everyone. Just boom, boom.
Yeah.
It hit everyone.
It was a very quiet conclusion there.
Yeah.
Let's go to the bones, guys.
Bones.
Bishki, roll right into it.
All right. Let me get the feel.
Okay, he's not going first.
He's hedging.
Let's give the resident hothead the floor.
I when it opened with Baldwin, we were at like a 4, like a 3.5. I was like, holy shit, I forgot about Spike. Because the trailer, because the trailer...
Why you gotta act like you forgot about Spike?
I know, yeah. But no, the trailer sells it as like such a conventional type of movie.
Yeah.
And I think everyone who's seen the trailer thinks, oh, it's going to be a conventional movie. And that opening scene, like, all bets are off. You're like, oh shit, this is not in the trailer. Like, this is not what I was expecting. And then, yeah, it kind of kept the 4-bone, 3.5-bone goodwill for the first act. I'd say for the first 30 minutes, I was totally like on the same page. But, as it went on, I definitely was feeling the running time. And, this is tough for me. I want to give it 3 bones. I really do. But
you got support in the car, Lucas.
But it kind of did play one note after a while in terms of the drama and the emotion, and and there was really no tension or suspense after the little lie detector window smashing scene, really. So I give it, fuck. I mean,
you can do it, Lucas.
2.5 bones. I mean, it's technically well made, but like I think it needed more work in the editing room. I feel like it definitely, like Bishki said, if it was a little bit shorter, it would have landed twice as hard. It would have knocked the wind out of you. Like I would have been crying at the end, but because it is like so meandering, and you made your point. I got it. It's it's 2.5.
Brother Zach, where your bones at?
don't disagree with most of what LT's saying. And I think I was watching the Stokely Carmichael sequence, and even as long as it was, I was so gripped, and I had been laughing, and he was showing me why Spike is such a legend and is such a virtuoso, unique filmmaker, and is often imitated in that first 25 to 30 minutes, that I thought, man, he's really going to do it. He's really going to deliver like another classic. This is not a classic for me, and I agree. If it was a little better constructed in the writing, and then it was a little tighter in the editing, yeah, this might have been a 4. It's just so timely. It's incredibly entertaining at times, and it really speaks to the moment we're living in, even though it's set 40 years ago. That said, it was often on limp in the middle of the movie. Despite that, it hit me like a ton of bricks at the end.
How many bones?
I go 3. I would recommend this to anyone with caveats.
Brother Ian, you're familiar with the bone system as a loyal listener. How many bones you give this?
It's pretty hard.
It is hard because it's a mixture of the message and the conveyance.
Well, the movie goes all over, in my opinion. It has spots there, and a lot of the humor. I did laugh. It made me laugh. But the end is just the part just kind of making my stomach cringe. Then I just like, well, I'll make it quick. I'm gonna give it 3 bones.
He's in the 3 zone.
I be honest, I like the film. I like the shots, the images, the Harry Belafonte part. I mean, it's amazing. But yeah, I mean, it did had, sloppy parts and, but yeah, I'll give it a 3 bones.
Cool.
Yeah.
Brother Bishke, have you had time to soak all this in?
Yeah, I did.
Now that it's safe for you to come out and say what you feel?
Now that Lucas gave it the count that I was going to give, now I feel, okay.
Emboldened? You feel emboldened by his rhetoric?
I feel emboldened by Lucas's. I'm going to give it 2.5 bones. I think it's definitely better than average, or better than Chirac for sure. And it, yeah, I mean, I thought it got like we said, it could have gotten cut down maybe a little bit, would have had a little more impact. And I like my politics a little more subtle.
Yeah, you do.
But that's just my personal preference. I think Spike. I wasn't expecting that from Spike. It's going to be bold, and it was bold, and it deserves some great performances. 2.5.
I am embarrassed because I'm 2.5 as well. The hosts are all of a hive mind. But it is what it is. Like I have to give it 2.5, and I'm gonna say, if this were a first feature or a second feature, a second feature with money, it would be 3 without a fucking doubt.
Or 3.5 too. Because it's
funny. It would be a 3 without a doubt.
Because what's funny? I don't know if anyone made the connection, but it's funny watching John David Washington as Ron Stallworth use his white guy voice, and we just saw Sorry to Bother You, where that's a whole plot point. Literally, it's like Boots Riley, had read about Ron Stallworth or read his book or something.
Yeah, and if it were, because it is bursting with ambition, and I do always want to reward that, because we need that. That's the fuel that drives this crazy mutating art form of cinema
big
forward.
Ideas, the big fish ideas.
Yes, but it's Spike. Spike should be a master by now.
Yeah, definitely.
And he intermittently is within this movie.
He is.
So the fact that it's his, 500th movie makes me a little more critical of it. Get someone to look at this with an editorial eye that you will listen to. Tighten the screws, make it pop, kick the shit out of us at the end. Get everything working so that no one can deny this. Not even, somebody who is in the Klan that goes to their multiplex to just see what this is all about. Make it undeniable. You have the tools, you have the talent, you have what appears to be all of the ingredients. and it's still good. So I got to give it 2.5 because it's not great.
The only thing I would just sprinkle in comparing it to the other, movie of a young black guy using a white voice
of the summer
is this film is, despite its shortcomings in script and editorial, what Ian's saying about the photography. Spike has a way with cinema language and camera angle, movement, and there's set pieces in this movie that are so much more polished and elevated cinematically than Sorry to Bother You.
Right.
And that to me is, despite the flaws of which, Matt, I more or less agree with, it does show Spike's skill and polish compared to a first-time filmmaker like Boots Riley, despite both these movies having a lot of rough around the edges moments and both bursting with ambition and ideas in different ways. So.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays in America. I mean,
there's a lot of shit. There's a lot of crazy shit going on in America besides race and class. You got people stealing airplanes
times.
And doing Denzel flight barrel rolls into Puget Sound or whatever.
We're
bubbling right now.
We very well might be podcasting in the post-apocalyptic wasteland just for ourselves.
We'll be living in the bombed-out shell of the AMC 16,
There won't even be any recording devices. We'll just be miming it to remember a time
it'll be tomato cans. We'll be talking into tomato cans.
Exactly. Oh, man. But as for now, civilization is still holding together.
By a hair. By a fucking hair.
Of an inch.
There's an emotional quality that is bubbling under the surface that I feel that when the Charlottesville section played and when Trump was on screen, I wanted to yell "fuck Trump" in the middle of the theater. I was so angry. I was so emotional. I was so on such a profoundly, deeply upset level with that. But I resisted because it would have been stupid. But I just emotionally felt like I wanted to release my anger towards this human being.
Quick hot take poll before we wrap this up. Will there be another Civil War, Bishki?
No.
Lucas?
No way.
Ian?
Making 50, 100 years.
50 or 100 years. Okay, Zach?
Not in the... I wouldn't know is my answer for the near future, no.
Interesting.
As much as Dinesh wants it, no.
Yeah, no.
No way, man.
But hopefully not.
I mean, hopefully not.
Yeah,
hopefully not. No,
I just hope we as a nation are too lazy. I think that's
too many screens.
I hope that the screens have pacified us enough so that we're not going to get up.
I tell you what, you take away pornography, then there might be a Civil War.
Well, we'll see. President Pence, we'll see.
Oh, shit.
Then they're going to lose Kanye because he likes his porn.
That's true.
We discovered that this week.
What a twisted web of a worldwide web that we live in.
I know. We got Sean Young committing burglaries.
The fuck? I read about that.
I know.
What was wrong with her?
She's stealing copies of Blade Runner.
Sidecast.
Yeah, overtime.
Okay.
That was our morning. That was our
never
morning.
wanted her to be Catwoman.
That was our morning. That was our morning view of Blackkklansman, folks. It is now the afternoon.
I'm taking a nap.
I need a drink.
The sun is lower in the sky, and we're gonna go release ourselves unto the joys of Burbank. I recommend you guys see this movie. Anybody who's listening, go see. This is now. This is what's. Even though it's set in the 70s, this is a movie about right now. So hook yourself into it, jack in, see what it's all about. Love and light to you.
Love and light.
Love and light to the lodge.
Power to all the people.
Power to all the people.
Poder means power.
Summer of Sam, Summer of Sluice.